Welcome to the Vibrant Visibility Podcast. Being visible as a soul-led business owner isn't just about the practical strategies, marketing tips, and tech systems. It's also about the internal systems, the safety of your nervous system, the somatic connection, and the embodiment of being a badass CEO that will support you in all of the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. And I'm here to share all of that with you on this show. I'm your host, Shawnee Arsenault, a registered nurse turned visibility coach and business mentor for heart-centered coaches and healers. I created a six-figure coaching practice in my first year of business and scaled to multiple six figures my second year, all in the middle of getting pregnant with my first baby and becoming a new mama. If I can do this entrepreneurship thing, I know you can too. If you're ready to learn how to be a CEO in a way that feels aligned with your heart, become a lighthouse for the people that you're meant to serve, feel free to authentically express yourself and be a magnet for success, and grow your coaching business in a way that is sustainable and fulfilling, I can't wait to be in your ear along for the ride. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Vibrant Visibility. I love the title of this episode because this is something that I've definitely said about myself a lot, and I can even recall so many personal experiences of me thinking that I was too much, right? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, what to do when you're afraid of being too much. If you've ever felt that like nagging feeling of being too much, too passionate, too ambitious, too outspoken, right? Or just too you for others to handle. We're going to be diving into that fear today, where it comes from. We're going to talk about how to really start loving the parts of you that you've been told are too much, right? This is something that I've definitely been told ever since I was little, that I was too much, too talkative, too loud, too bubbly. And this topic is so personal to me, but I also know that so many coaches in my community feel this, and many of my clients as well. This is something that I can't even count how many clients have told me that this is their experience. This is such a common fear. This is such a common fear for heart-centered coaches, business owners, healers, especially those who really want to show up authentically in their business and yet worry about being judged, being criticized. You know, it's a fear that's very deeply rooted in past experiences, in societal conditioning, the culture that we're raised in, yada, yada. This fear often leads, I think, to, playing small in your business too. When you think you're too much, it means you don't want to put yourself out there as much. You don't want to be 100% yourself. So you do end up playing small or feeling the need to tone down who you are, which really prevents you from connecting genuinely with your ideal clients, with the people that you are meant to help, and getting the amazing work that you do out there. I think it's so important to really understand where this fear of too much comes from, because in order to make our services, our coaching support accessible and discoverable to the people who actually need it, we kind of have to be too much, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that too, about like why being too much is actually probably a good thing. So I'll be unpacking where this belief of being too much can come from, right? We're going to explore, of course, some somatic tools to help you reframe it and to move through it and release that belief. And then ultimately, we're going to be learning how to actually really celebrate the power of being too much in the world of coaching and healing. So let's start by understanding where this belief comes from, right? And why it's so powerful, right? We're really going to be unpacking the conditioning behind being too much. So I think societal and cultural norms often create this sense that being too much is problematic, right? This messaging that being too much is a problem starts really early. It starts in childhood or young adulthood, like when we're told to fit in, to follow the rules, to stay within the comfort zone of others. I'll tell a personal story about this. I remember whenever I was a kid, I was extremely outgoing. Okay. I was talkative. I was bubbly. I just wanted to make friends with everyone. I would often stay awake during nap time in kindergarten because I wanted to hang out with the other kids laying around me. So I would literally just like stay up and talk to people and just try to have fun and try to connect. And I was told so often that I was too much, that I was too talkative, and that it was disruptive to others. Now, while I totally understand that at the time in kindergarten, nap time was nap time. And in school, there are rules to follow. And my teacher was just enforcing the rules. That memory from when I was around 5 or 6 really stands out to me because it was the first memory that I have of feeling like I had to change who I was to fit what others, especially authority figures, expected of me. So as you can see, this belief of I'm too much started really, really early for me. And likely it started really, really early for you if you're kind of in that realm of feeling like you're too much. I also think that people who serve others, right? Coaches, healers, healthcare workers, first responders, like even service industry workers and people who work in retail even, there's a huge layered impact of this belief on any profession where you are helping other humans. Okay. And we can often have this like heightened sense of self-consciousness because we're aiming to please, right? I'm a recovering people pleaser here. We're aiming to please and help and heal. It's part of our job, right? And if you work in a setting where it's part of your main responsibility to help or serve people, it can kind of make you more sensitive to what others think of you, and then fueling that fear of being too much, not wanting to step on people's toes, not wanting to be disruptive, right? And this belief can make us edit or shrink down our personalities, our energy, or even like morph our offerings out of fear of judgment, fear of rejection. So there is this sense of layered impact that it has on certain profession types or certain personality types. So I want you to have some awareness on like what your own experiences are with feeling like you're too much and identifying where this belief might have taken root in your life, right? So if you can like even close your eyes and take a moment to think back as far as you can recall. Was there a time where you were ever told to be quieter, to be less enthusiastic, to be less bold, right? And notice how these moments start to shape how you show up now. Even if it seems unrelated, likely your body remembers, right? I have a very visceral experience whenever I think about all of those memories of every time I was told to be quieter, to be less talkative, to be less outgoing, less bubbly, less obnoxious. So also take note of how your body remembers that experience. Whenever I think about that, I just feel like a heaviness in my chest and I feel this like clenching of my jaw, almost kind of like an anger. Like, man, I'm feeling like my true self, my true authentic self is being dampened. There's rules being placed on top of it. So what sensations are you noticing as you think about those memories? Like, how does your body let you know in small ways that this memory has impacted your sense of identity? So let's talk about how to move beyond that belief, that sense of, oh, I'm too much. And how do we release that? There's a lot of different tools that are helpful for this, right? Somatic work, absolutely. Somatic tools for releasing that fear of too much can be so, so helpful. And the reason is because, kind of like what I was just now saying, our bodies hold on to these memories that create limiting beliefs, not just on the psychological level, but on like a deep somatic level as well. Even if you can't really logically say where this sense of I'm too much is coming from, your body kind of remembers, right? It might have happened when you were like too young to even remember what was going on or to even remember what memory triggered it, what memory started it. And they're stored in the very cells of our body. And the goal here is not to totally get rid of or forget these beliefs, but to really acknowledge them, to feel safer embodying a new belief, right? The belief that it's okay to be too much, that it's okay to be our full selves. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the coaching field, try to remove that belief completely and forget about it. And there's a reason why it's hard to do that. I haven't really met anyone who's been able to do that. So here's a structure for a practice you can try that might help you to kind of move through that belief and make it easier for you to acknowledge and release and choose differently. So you can start to create a new way of viewing yourself. Right? It's like we're taking the lens off of what your conditioning has allowed you to see through, and we're getting an upgrade to our glasses here. So first step, I always like to ground myself in some kind of somatic practice. So breath work, movement, grounding breath work, grounding exercises can really help you kind of like settle into your body whenever you do this work. And this practice really helps create that foundation of safety within yourself, right? We have to feel safe to be too much. Even when you feel self-conscious or worried about being too much, there's still this sense of internal safety that we can accept, that we can really lean into whenever we start to incorporate more somatic type practices to get us out of our heads into our bodies, right? Anything you can do to get out of your head and into your body is going to be so helpful in creating this awareness for you and this sense of feeling like, okay, I'm okay. This is not dangerous. So, invitation to close your eyes here. Maybe take a couple of deep breaths. And whenever you think about that belief of I'm too much, where do you notice a slight shifting in your body? Where do you notice that actually landing? If you're thinking about I'm too much, I'm too X, Y, and Z, where does that land in your body? What sensations do you notice? Maybe you're feeling like a tightness or heaviness somewhere. Maybe you notice where specifically in your body that belief lands, and go ahead and just take a nice deep breath through that acknowledgement. Right? We're noticing that your body is responding to a specific belief and then allowing ourselves to move through it and regulate. Now what I want you to do is to imagine your like most authentic, expressive, powerful self. Maybe it's a future version of you. Maybe it's a version of you that's like way down the line that doesn't feel like she quite exists at all yet. And I'm curious to know how that visual feels in your body, like into that sensation of that energy as you breathe. I use this visual a lot, bringing that future self into your awareness and kind of embodying that version of you. What does it feel like to be that version of you? You know, that version of you that shows up freely and fully in your business and in your life with no judgment from themselves or from others. And this really is just to gain awareness. This visual isn't to arrive at a destination. It's really just to kind of feel into, how does my body respond to this? And as soon as you kind of have that clear picture in your mind and that sense of, oh yeah, this is what that feels like in my body, coming back, bringing your awareness back to the present moment and jotting some stuff down, right? So the next step would be to kind of like do some journaling here. And I have some journaling prompts to help you kind of process that fear of being too much and identifying what the actual internal experience is that you have of being too much. So thinking about these questions, when do I feel like I'm too much? And what specifically am I afraid of? Right? Whenever I feel like I'm too much, I'm afraid that people are going to judge me, that people are going to reject me. Usually I feel like I'm too much whenever I am getting really excited about something. That's when I have those thoughts come in of like, oh, maybe I'm being too much. If I'm like really passionate about something, or if I have a specific topic that I can't stop talking about, that's like when I start to worry that I'm too much. And what specifically am I afraid of? I'm afraid that people are going to think I'm weird. I'm afraid that people are going to see a different side of me that maybe they didn't expect to see. I'm afraid of looking vulnerable, right? So start to think about what comes up for you whenever you hear that question. When do I feel like I'm too much? What scenarios do I tend to be in whenever I'm having that feeling? And then what specifically am I afraid of? What am I afraid of whenever it comes to being too much? Am I afraid that people are going to judge me? Am I afraid that I'm going to push people away, or that I'm going to push the wrong buttons, or I'm going to cause conflict? The next journal prompt question I want you to think about is, what parts of me do I hold back? If I feel like I'm being too much, what parts of me am I noticing myself trying to tone down? And how might embracing those parts of me more fully feel? How different would it feel to actually not hold back? Right? That's one of the things that I've really been leaning into recently is like, whenever I get excited about something, I get excited about something and I allow myself to be excited about it and I don't hold back, even at the risk of it being too much for people or for me being too animated and wild and crazy and whatever. And embracing it for me makes me feel free. It makes me feel untouchable. Another question to think about is who benefits? Who benefits from me playing small? Who benefits from me hiding parts of myself? Who benefits from me playing small, and how might things shift if I showed up 100% myself? Right. So I'll just kind of speak on this one from my own personal experience. Not a lot of people benefit from me playing small, except for my ego, right? Whenever I show up as 100% myself, I have noticed, especially being a visibility coach and a business mentor, when I show up as 100% myself, it encourages my clients, my audience, my community to be able to show up as 100% themselves as well. And so really no one in my circle benefits from me playing small. I actually make the most impact whenever I show up and play big. So asking yourself, how can I embrace my too much to help others? And then after you've journaled a little bit and written some of this down, reflected on some of these questions, affirmation work, right? Reclaiming your fullness, your too muchness. Here are some affirmations that might be able to help you affirm your right to show up fully in your power. Now, I want you to say these with me, say these out loud, say whatever version of these feels the best for you. These are the ones that I came up with. I am allowed to take up space. Oh, this is a huge one. This is a huge one, right? Because I've always been the kind of person that has not wanted to take up too much space. I have not wanted to step on people's toes. I don't like to be the center of attention to where I feel like I'm taking attention away from other people, right? So like for the first couple of years in my business, I was in like a group space, right? And I would always be the last to raise my hand and ask to be coached because I didn't feel like I could take up space. I didn't want to take up space. I wanted everybody else to have their space first. Because if I allowed myself to take up space, I was afraid that I was going to be too much. And I was going to take up too much time and take away from somebody else, right? So just affirming, I am allowed to take up space. This is also one of the reasons why I hired a one-on-one coach, was because I wanted to start really leaning into my ability to take up space. And if I didn't hire a one-on-one coach, I don't think I would have ever been able to learn that skill as fast as I have. Right now, being too much, taking up space, it's not as triggering for me because I've given myself a lot of opportunities to practice taking up space. And it started with this affirmation, right? I'm allowed to take up space. It is safe to take up space. Being fully myself attracts the right people to me. I love this affirmation because whenever I think about all of the ways in which I've morphed myself to fit what I think other people might want to see, I've always ended up attracting clients that didn't feel fully aligned, that didn't feel quite like my people. And so I really had to find my stride with that at the beginning of my business. Now, all of my clients, dream clients, okay? So being fully myself attracts the most aligned clients, the most aligned people to me. My authenticity is my strength. It's not a weakness, right? Every aspect of me, the dark parts, the weird parts, sometimes the messy parts, it's all packaged up as a strength, not a weakness. It's what makes me me. It's what makes me stand out as a coach, as a healer, right? So really leaning into your authenticity and what makes you different, what makes you think that you are less than or weird is usually what sets you apart from other coaches and usually what other people are going to be magnetized to. Ooh, okay. This last affirmation, when I lean into being too much, I set an example for others to be fearless when it comes to taking up space, right? If I'm too much, I give others permission to do the same, to take up space. So what I want you to do is pick 1 or 2 days this week to try either all or parts of this practice and see if anything starts to shift. It's totally normal if nothing shifts as well, right? These deeply rooted beliefs, can take a long, long, long time to unpack and to untangle. So also giving yourself some grace and remembering to start with where you are currently, right? Meeting yourself where you're at, not expecting yourself to be at a stage of healing that you ultimately want to be at, and then like judging yourself for not being there. How can we be okay with exactly where you are right now? Your current relationship with the idea of being too much is totally okay. So here's why I think being too much is actually a really good thing, right? It can actually be a gift. Being too much as a coach can translate into being more passionate, being more committed, being more authentic. And then those are all qualities that clients crave in a coach. They crave a coach who is passionate, who is inspirational, who is committed to the work, who is real and raw and vulnerable. So being too much really just means that you're willing to go first and to show up boldly, which sets a really beautiful example for clients to feel comfortable doing the same and then leaning into their own ability to be bold, to be different, to be uniquely themselves. So it is a gift that you're not only giving to yourself to be able to have that freedom and flexibility to just be who you are, but you also give your clients permission. You lead by example. You set that example for them to embrace the entirety of who they are as human beings. Now, this is the Vibrant Visibility Podcast. I am a visibility coach, so this definitely translates into your ability to be visible. Your ability to be visible and your willingness to be fully authentic is the exact thing that attracts ideal clients who resonate with your realness to you, right? Clients are drawn to those who don't edit themselves, who share really open and honestly, even if it's vulnerable or a lot. I would much rather work with a coach who I get the sense is like a real person going through real person shit and not trying to put on this act of, I'm perfect, I have it all figured out. Here are all of the ways in which I have it all figured out. Like, bleh, that is so boring and not real. And it doesn't capture the essence of the human experience. So I want this to kind of be a new perspective for you on embracing your too muchness as like a beacon. It's the lighthouse, right? In coaching and healing, we go first. And my typical marketing strategy is the lighthouse energy, right? Being too much may be exactly what someone else needs to witness, to see, to feel like they can give themselves permission to fully be themselves, right? And that's kind of what lighthouse energy is leading by example. Sharing your own vulnerable personal stories, being real, being raw, being unfiltered, unedited. I often share my own stories with my clients if they ask. I'm not ever one to like gatekeep my human experience because I think it's important for us to normalize what we feel and what we experience internally without making it wrong, without judging it, a specific way. And many of my clients really appreciate that kind of transparency. Okay, now I want to talk about how to reframe. How do we reframe that belief of I'm too much and kind of like create this new identity that we can lean into as coaches, as healers, as leaders in our communities? So a couple of reframes. Whenever you think about being too much, how is that actually a strength, right? Tell me this. What are you actually too much of? Okay, too expressive, too dedicated, too empathetic, too emotional. Man, this one I've felt a lot, the too emotional one. And then think about like, how is that actually a good thing? How does this help you coach better? How does this help you support your clients better? Oh man, like even just saying that I'm too emotional, I'm just now starting to realize like how heavy that one has been for me is I'm too emotional. I mean, that has bled into so many different aspects of my life. It's deeply rooted in this memory that I have whenever I was a kid of getting upset about something and then being told to stop crying. And so it was unsafe for me to feel emotions. It felt like it was wrong for me to be that emotional. But whenever I'm like reframing this in my head, being emotional is one of the most valuable gifts that I have as a coach, right? Being able to tune into other people's emotions and feel what other people feel, that is a huge strength of mine, right? And that actually helps me coach better. It helps me drop in easier with my clients if I can lean into what their emotions are So start thinking about how all of the ways you are too much actually benefit your coaching. I want you to do this. I want you to take a moment to write down the qualities that you've been told are too much, right? So too quirky, too weird, too intellectual, too quiet, too outgoing. And beside each one, write down why that quality is actually an asset in your work as a coach or healer. Why it is helpful. Like I think about like for introverts, for any of you who are introverts out there, if you've been told that you're too quiet, that is a huge strength in the coaching world. Being too quiet could translate to you being able to listen so deeply that you truly hear your clients. You truly are able to pick up on what's not being said. And then we have to learn to integrate and celebrate your too much qualities. I want you guys to start showing up with these qualities instead of holding them back. If you've been told you're too quiet, where can we lean into that like deep listening at any point in our day-to-day lives? If you've been told that you are too bubbly and outgoing, how can you lead with that and see how the energy shifts in the room the more you do it, right? But whenever you start to own these traits and create space for those parts of you to come alive and to be free and to not be chained down by expectations and societal norms, right? You allow other people to have the encouragement and the confidence to go against the grain and be a little bolder, be a little bit more rebellious and not give a fuck what people think about them, right? Not make this bad or wrong to be this way. All right, this potentially can get a little preachy, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Just some key takeaways, some things that I want you guys to walk away with, right? Being too much is often just another way of being powerful, authentic, vibrant, especially when it comes to your visibility in your business. It is possible to let go of those limiting beliefs and embrace your natural way of being and leaning into the too much. Especially if you have practices like somatic work and different like reflections, prompts, reframing, affirmations, kind of a lot of the stuff we talked about today. When you think about it, these limiting beliefs were only developed, these thoughts of I'm too much, those were only developed to keep you safe from the threat of being judged or criticized or rejected, rooted in your childhood. Right? And once you have that awareness, it's easier to create other thought pathways that actually support the type of coach, an entrepreneur you actually want to be. Likely the qualities that you worry are too much are often the same qualities that make clients feel safe, seen, inspired. And when you take away those qualities, your audience is left with a watered down version of you, and they can tell when they're not getting 100% authenticity and realness. So I hope this episode was helpful for you. I would love to hear specifically around this topic because I know it can be very vulnerable and deep. Like those beliefs and those thoughts can run really deep. I'd love to hear what came up for you here. Feel free to email me. I always love getting your emails whenever you guys listen to the podcast and have really big aha moments and takeaways. If you aren't already subscribed to the podcast newsletter, I have a newsletter where I send out reminders every time one of these new episodes comes up. I also have a blog that's associated with it. And I am opening up spots for my one-on-one coaching and mentorship in January. If you feel ready to embrace your true self, to be more okay with being too much and really put yourself out there more as a healer, as a coach, and increase your visibility in a really heart-centered way, I would love to support you in that one-on-one space. Apply for a spot. That link will be in the show notes for you. I cannot wait to have you in my circle. And just remember, you were never too much. You were just waiting for the right people to resonate with you. So I encourage you guys to show up, to be bold, to let your light shine. Your people are waiting for the real you. All right. I love you guys. I will see y'all next week. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If this was helpful for you, subscribe to the show to make sure you're always in the loop when a new episode is out. And I would love to invite you to join me in the free Visibility and Tech Support for Coaches community, where we hang out and chat about all things visibility, tech, systems, and heart-centered business building. I regularly share tips and tutorials and go live every now and then, and it's just nice to be in a community with other like-minded coaches and healers. So you can join this free space at alignwellco.com/community, and I can't wait to see you there.